We've got life, liberty, and the pursuit of high-speed wireless internet access. Martin O'Malley, the Democratic governor of Maryland, declared this week that Wi-Fi is a human right. This declaration came in a CNN profile on the differences in baby boomers and younger generations, specifically the different ways the respective generations measure success. I quote, baby boomers and older were often told that if we specialize in terms of our skills, we will be more secure and prosperous. That the definition of making it was living out in the suburbs as far away as possible with the biggest lawn possible, O'Malley said. Younger people are choosing to live in cities, O'Malley continued. They realize that connections to each other are making us better, that Wi-Fi is a human right, that proximity is important to entrepreneurship, access to capital and talent and diversity. There's an opportunity there for us as a nation to embrace that new perspective. Now, O'Malley's been making headlines across the country as he stumps for Democratic mayoral and gubernatorial candidates in several states. Not only that, he's even stumped for some state Senate races in states across the country. Full disclosure / bragging because we think it's kind of awesome. Governor O'Malley recently stumped for friend of the show Tyler Pearson in his run against Arkansas State Senate District 35 incumbent Jason Raper. So, Jules, and now we've got the little plug in there for a friend of the show. What do you think? Is this a human right? Is broadband wireless internet a human access a human right, or is this just a well-calculated headline grab for someone with presidential aspirations for 2016?
I think it's a little bit of both, actually. With the part of the internet is the fact that we have such a wonderful wealth of information, and I think knowledge should be free. It should be free. Knowledge is a human right, and this is our access to knowledge. This is the sphere that we live on now. It's not just the big blue earth. It's the inner tubes, So, yeah, I think in a way it is partially a human right, and I think Google kind of agrees with that with some of the work that they've done in getting net-ready phones out to people in poor countries so that they can access and that they're also getting their services out to these third world countries so that people can learn and they can educate themselves, and the more educated we are, the better world we're going to have. The more people we have working on things like cancer or space or exploration or whatever it may be, the better we are. And this is one thing that brings it to us.
Well, and let's not be naive. I mean, that may be what, one of the driving factors in what Google's doing, but let's keep it real. Google makes money based on how many people are on the internet. Traffic is what is their revenue stream. That's why their Google Fiber, prototypes that they've been running out in Kansas City and I think Austin, it's basically free because they don't really care about getting people to pay for the infrastructure because they rake in millions and millions and billions and billions off ad revenue. So the more people they can get offline or online, the better their revenue is. That's not to say what they're doing is necessarily a bad thing, but I think they're probably driven by profit more than they are any nurturing ideology to see change in the world. What about you, Haven?
I would say this is, first of all, we need to be very realistic and honest with the fact that this is such a first world human right now. As far as other poorer countries, having internet is probably, at the very least, second to water, but that's just me. Maybe I'm crazy. But as far as within a developed nation, it is a very important thing to have, especially in the U.S. and places like the U.K. because, in these countries, we rarely have instances where households don't have at least more than one computer. And the way things are shifting in this country and others is that we're going into our tertiary revolution, our tech revolution, and everything is being very, very dependent on having access to the internet. I don't think people really understand how important it is to, have your Facebook updated and be connected on Twitter because a lot of jobs are looking at how well interconnected you are and using that as a factor to even hire you in the first place. So I think here in America and places like the UK, for right now, yes, having that access is very, very important. It's becoming increasingly important to the point where it damn near is a human right, because it might dictate the level of livelihood you're able to obtain.
Yeah, that's there's some solid insight there. I guess it really all it depends on, what do you mean by, is it a human right? Like, are we talking like everyone has a right, to legally access the internet? Well, I don't think anybody would argue with that. I mean, if you're going to, like, let's say the internet came along during, Jim Crow and black people couldn't get on it, I think that would clearly be a human rights abuse, or a human rights violation, I guess you could say. But the idea that, everybody should just have the internet, like, I don't know, maybe this is privileged white American male speaking, but that just seems borderline ridiculous to me. To Haven's point, I mean, there's people that don't have access to water, and we're going to equate the internet with that. Now, at the same time, I get that just because there are problems in the world doesn't mean you don't want to make other things better. I mean, I'm not saying that. But yeah, just the idea that,
I mean, don't get me wrong, having access to knowledge is increasingly important. It's very, very important. But as far as, like, as a human right for Americans, it is. And no one loves knowledge more than me. I love learning things. I wish one of the problems that I think we have as Americans is that we don't have a thirst for learning. But when it comes to having access to the internet, it's not like we are providing infrastructures where we can help people understand how to navigate through the internet. And I think that's probably a little bit more important. There are a lot of people who don't know the proper etiquette, or they don't know to not put personal information on it. Those kind of things, if we were to make this a human right, and if it is that serious, we would also need to bump up the education and the importance of navigating through the internet, learning proper resources to use, learning the proper sites to go through, what is hearsay, what is really an article through a fourth and fifth source, things like that. So it's like, it's important, but if it's really that important, then we should be providing a lot more information and education on it in the first place.
I think there's an analogous, kind of line to draw there on the information point. It's just, again, I point to, like, Jim Crow and, to libraries, which I guess are really what the closest thing we've had to the internet for, all of human existence until recently. And again, if you're saying black folks have to go to their own library and it's this little crappy library with no books, and white folks get to go to a good library, then yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, if that's what you mean by saying it's a human right, like everybody should have access to the same internet and with no legal barriers, I'm 100% there. But at the same time, if I want to read a book, the library, doesn't, like, it's not a human rights violation if the entire, state-run library doesn't pack up and come to my house, whenever I jolly well please. Like, if that's what we're getting at, then yeah, there's no way I'm going to get behind this. Go ahead and pick up there.
No, I'm not saying that necessarily. What I'm saying is that to have access to this knowledge, to be able to get all of this knowledge in one place, people in third world countries, if we provided the infrastructure, like Haven is talking about, they could look at new ways of going about, say, getting water, or new ways of growing crops, ways of bettering their lives. And so in a way that is supporting, and yeah, what you said earlier about, yeah, Google's in this for making money, yeah, that's true. But the amount of benefit that people, extremely poor people, could get from this is just dramatic. I mean, there are so many things. I mean, school kids today literally cannot go to school without having some form of internet or a computer in their house, hardly, because so much of the curriculum is web-based. And
that's very cool. I do want to point out that this particular politician is not talking about third world countries getting this access.
I'm not supporting the politician at all.
I'm just saying, I really just want to be realistic. When he says it's a human right, he doesn't mean that it's for the third world. I completely agree with you that letting certain countries and these underdeveloped countries have access to knowledge would be an immense help to them and their personal development. Whether or not we give a fuck that they develop, that's a completely different story. We're probably purposely keeping them kind of as ignorant as possible so that we can extract the metals that we need to continue our technology boom. But when it comes to Americans, I think it is important, but it's not like Americans don't have the access. For the little time that the government was running in a way where nobody was hating it, it did have libraries that have free access to Wi-Fi, so there are options. We should expand those options because not everybody has the ability to get to a Wi-Fi connection. A lot of people don't even have, there's some people who don't have the ability to have a laptop, despite the fact that there's this huge boom where households have like 7 laptops, 7 different types of electronics in their home where they can access knowledge. But
no, that's very true.
Let's not kid ourselves. The more access to the internet means the more people watching porn. That's really just that's what that's going.
No, what you're saying, Haven, is exactly right. My home health aide comes in every day. I have her here 4 hours a day, and I literally have fought tooth and nail to try to get her a computer. And going through different community resources, I absolutely could not find anyone in our community, and we're in a fairly large area. We're like the 2nd largest city in Indiana, which isn't saying much, but there were absolutely no community resources that I could find, and I'm good at finding community resources to help this lady get a computer. She has 3 kids, 3 school-age kids, 2 in middle school, 1 just starting high school, and this, to me, is an absolute necessity for them to be able to have access to a computer and have access to the internet. And yeah, granted, you can go to libraries, you can do this, you can do that, but that's not always possible, especially in poor communities. You don't have the transportation, the library's too far, you don't have the time, you have to work when you get home from school, you have to do your homework late, so that means you're stuck with nothing, and you can't do a lot of the stuff that these schools expect you to do without having access to a computer and the internet. Yes, it should be something that is basically ours here in the United States. There's no reason, absolutely no fucking reason, that poor families should be without a computer and the internet. There is no reason. There is no reason they should be without food. There is no reason for a lot of these issues, but we're not getting our kids educated because of a lot of reasons, and one of the reasons is they don't have the resources to keep up in school because they can't afford them.
Well, whether or not you think this is a success of the free market and our tendency to let profit drive the greater good in America, or whether you think this is an indictment of that, let's keep it real. We probably will have universal access probably more readily available and more rapidly than any other thing that we've ever considered a human right, precisely because this is a money-making venture, and it's something that you don't need to have money to pay for the people who make money from it to make money, because they make money off of ad revenue and clicks and traffic and everything else. So even you want to draw a parallel to the story out of Detroit, with the water thing. Those people don't have water because they don't have the money to pay to the water company, to the utility company. Google doesn't care how much money you have. They make money based on what you click on. So poor people become, revenue factories in the system. And for that reason, we will probably see universal internet access and have it treated like a human right, because it's profitable and anybody can turn a profit, or anybody can become a profit, I should say. But that also plays into to Jules's point, and this is where, and Haven brought this up as well, where I might kind of be pushing back. There's a lot of people pushing back against some of the education reform movement and pointing out, like, hey, a lot of these people calling for reform are saying that we do it through the internet and through computers, and they're people who are invested in technology companies, and they're selling contracts for their own companies to the schools they're trying to reform. So, maybe that's something you have to factor in as well.